We'd like to welcome in the host of MLB Network's MLB Now, Brian Kenny. Thank you for the time. The year that many people go back to as the beginning stages of Moneyball is 2002, with the Oakland Athletics winning that Western Division and winning 20 games in a row. But the theories and ideas of Bill James and this Moneyball philosophy have existed way before 2002. Is that correct?
Well, I would say you would trace it back to, there's all sorts of little blasts of logic through the history of the game, whether it was F.C. Lane writing about things in the early part of the 20th century, or if it was Branch Rickey employing a statistician for the Brooklyn Dodgers, again, looking for some statistical proof, some actual evidence, or dig beneath the surface to find out what the true value was of certain players. And I think the wave officially began in 1984 with The Hidden Game of Baseball by Pete Palmer and John Thorne. They then wrote Total Baseball, which was their version of the baseball encyclopedia. And I remember getting that around 1990, 91, 92, somewhere around there, and having my mind expand as that came out. I was searching for new evidence. I was searching for something better than what we had. And shortly thereafter, Bill James started publishing, and that from there, things really picked up. By the time Moneyball was written in 2003, I thought it was passé. I thought everyone was hip to the revolution, but they were not. And so even 8 years after that, when the movie came out, people are still being educated by it. I'm stunned, but there's still a large portion of the industry, the community, the fan base that is still not up to date on the last 25 years of breakthroughs.
Sticking with the 2002 Oakland Athletic team, going into the 2002 season, they knew that they were going to be losing guys like Jason Giambi, Jason Isringhausen, and Johnny Damon. So they began analyzing unconventional statistics, such as on-base percentage. Why were these statistics so valuable?
Well, you'd have to go back earlier than that, and the A's were in a situation financially where they just couldn't go out and compete for the best talent. When you can't compete for the best talent, you have to figure out other ways. And they were trying to figure out other ways, and it was Sandy Alderson who first gave Bill James's writings to Billy Beane, knowing that Billy had an intellectual curiosity, especially for an ex-player. And Billy started looking into that, and Sandy Alderson recognized that with his background, that there has to be a better way of doing this, and maybe there are other avenues we can take rather than traditional scouting and traditional investment. And that's done in all walks of life, and I think the most instructive thing in the study of sabermetrics is that these things can be applied to other parts of our lives. It's transcendent. It's not something that just applies to baseball and that's where it ends. You should always be looking for a better way of doing things.
Before we get into the teams that are using the Moneyball approach, there are some teams like the New York Yankees, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Boston Red Sox, big market teams that give out long-term deals to players that are in that 28 to 29-year-old range and extend to their mid-30s for a lot of money and really straps them down towards the back end of those contracts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We did a study on Clubhouse Confidential of the big contracts, the biggest contracts in baseball, and the worst contracts in baseball, and what are the red flags? What's the methodology to avoid getting hamstrung in this way? And you can do this study, but then it's a matter of, do you adhere to it? Everybody knows it, and yet everybody is intoxicated by the here and now and what's right in front of them. When the Angels signed Albert Pujols, they're looking at a 31-year-old Albert Pujols, and yeah, that guy is still very good, but you're not just paying a 31-year-old Albert Pujols, you're going to be paying a 41-year-old Albert Pujols.
With the Yankees sticking to that $189 million threshold, is there a chance that Robinson Cano might not be in pinstripes when his contract expires at the end of this year?
Yeah, there is. The Yankees are going to have to see, how high can they go. And when you let someone get into their walk year, you let them sniff in the free agent market, there might be somebody that will blow them out of the water. We've seen the Nationals, just spend more than other teams are willing to, and the Dodgers now seem to be willing to spend more than other teams are willing to do. So if the Yankees were really thinking they needed to have Robinson Cano, the time to act is now. You need to get in before he gets into that last year, and that's a tough spot because in Cano's case, He's, if you look at positional scarcity and his value as compared to other people at his position, he might be the most valuable guy in the sport.
Now let's touch on the 2012 Oakland A's, who before that 2012 season started, Billy Beane decided to trade off some guys like Gio Gonzalez, Trevor Cahill, and Andrew Bailey for some young talent, some guys like Jared Parker, Ryan Cook, Josh Reddick, who made an immediate impact at the major league level. For me personally, those were moves that were quite mind-boggling. I didn't think that they would be very good at all. How did you evaluate the trade, and did you project them to have such success as they did last year?
No, I was very much taken by surprise. I thought they'd be bad. I thought they'd be actually bad, and I looked like they were tearing down even a mediocre team to have an excellent team 4 years down the road. But you put it all together. You just have to give them credit. They made their proper evaluations of all the players, and they really benefited from having a stockpile of good young players, where even if everybody doesn't come through for you, because it seems like, wow, they got lucky. They just hit on all their moves. But it's not quite that. They still had a percentage of guys that weren't coming through for them, but they made so many sound investments. They always get such a high yield in number of good players that they get when they make these trades for major league contributors, that they just had an amazing surplus of arms. I was stunned. Yoenis Cespedes. Now, even at the time, that deal made sense, but nowhere, not for where they were on the win curve. Everybody adds a little bit, and it worked out beautifully. I'm glad they could do it, because those who are, kind of against the analytic approach, I don't know why that would be, by the way, but there are some who are still. It just gives them one fewer weapon to wield. That you can't say, oh, look at the A's, they're no good. Yeah. Nope, actually, they're outstanding. Now what do you got?
I want to discuss some teams that are now using the Moneyball philosophy to their advantage. The two teams that stand out to me are the Tampa Bay Rays, who over the last 5 years have won around 90 games and have competed in a very tough American League East. Also, the Oakland A's, who just last year ended up winning the American League West despite having such a low payroll. First, let's touch on the Tampa Bay Rays. They go on and trade a guy like James Shields, a very good pitcher, for a couple of young prospects, most notably Will Myers. How did you evaluate the James Shields trade?
It's a tremendous deal for the Rays. They get a guy who's going to contribute immediately to the major league club this year. He hasn't been in high A ball or something. This guy coming out of AAA, minor league player of the year. You have him under reasonable cost control for several years, and you're dealing away a guy who is probably slightly overrated. Solid major league contributor, well above average in Shields, but a guy who's now into his 30s, and a guy who is costing you a lot of money, and a guy who you don't have under club control beyond, I think, the next 2 years. It's economically, it's a slam dunk.
My final question to you, and you kind of touched on it, all teams are using some extent of Moneyball now, and my question to you is it one way or the other, or is it integrating of both? Can you go out and spend money, or should you have financial restrictions on yourself to make the proper decisions?
Yeah, and any of those small market teams, if you gave them more money, they'd use it. They say, do we have more money? They're doing this out of necessity. And look, the Red Sox were at the vanguard of all this, and then they just kept making more and more money, and it's kind of just